What's good with the folks out there? I am Damo, the political plug. This is the Chop Up Show. How are y'all doing? Thank y'all for joining us on another Thursday evening. I know it's late out there where the rest of y'all at, but we on the West Coast, so it's still pretty early out here. We got big sis Tiff in the building already.
My
Shout out to
dog.
Tiffany.
What's
But
up? What's good? What's good?
I got my dog Toya here with me. How you feeling, Toya? How you doing? How your week been going?
Listen, it's been a long one. I ain't gonna hold you. I'm happy the weekend is here. This is the first weekend in a long time. I'm not committed to anybody but myself and the Kansas City Chiefs, and so I am on the edge of my seat. With my next stuck out an expectation for what I'm assuming will be a nice football game. But I ain't gonna hold you. I don't want a nice football game. I want an ASCII team. I
Oh
want
yeah,
a
blowout.
clobbering. I would like a blowout, but I'm not going to assume that Christian McCaffrey, who just won Offensive Player of the Year, the young man by the name of Brock Purdy, who is just not all that irrelevant anymore, and Debo Samuel, and Brandon Ayuk, and it's just so many people over there. What's the man? It's the offensive linebacker, Trent something.
Oh, Trent Williams, Boomer Sooner. Yeah.
And it's
I was
somebody I'm just
actually at OU while Trent was at OU when he was playing for OU. So yeah,
that was
actually
a
he
long.
he tight with
I'm just
Lee.
saying, I was there at the same time. That's a long time ago. What was you saying?
Yeah, he tight with Lee. Like they had a, you know what I'm saying? Because Lee used
Amazing.
to work on the football team. So yeah, shout out to Trent.
Well, y'all some old men, so that means he an old man
Yeah,
doing amazing things on that team. So
uh,
look, I don't care about them.
yeah,
Chris Jones and Trent McDuffie and Legarius Sneed and Isaiah
all of that.
Pacheco. All
Yeah,
these people. But this is not a sports podcast. I just want to let y'all know that I'm in high anticipation for the Super
but we
Bowl. It's a
are
lot of
Kansas
people.
City. Like we Kansas City born and raised. So you
And
gonna
it's a
get
lot
that.
of people who want us to lose. Y'all sick of Patrick Mahomes. Y'all sick of Travis Kelsey. Y'all sick of Taylor Smith. And what they say, you better prepare to be sick of me.
Yeah,
Just prepare to be sick of me, because if we get it done, it's lit in the city. And by the city, I mean Kansas City. And
right,
so
right.
it's up.
But with that, we can go ahead and get right into the conversation. You feel me? We don't want to keep y'all too long. We be keeping y'all long enough. But we do have some important dialogue to have, and I'll go ahead and start us out this
Yeah.
evening. Uh so as like we consider ourselves anti-racist, right? Like that's you feel like that's okay if I put that label on you, Toya? You consider yourself an anti-racist?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
So what would you say is one of the most difficult aspects of being against the racism? Like having that
Uh,
position.
Shout out to Yves in the comments. Shout out to Hood Therapy, of course. Again, shout out to Tiffany. The most difficult part about being an anti-racist
Yeah.
is probably that. I mean, I'm a product of my environment, and by environment I mean like just like the world, like society. And so I probably do my own people bad, or think or function in ways that might be a degree of racist,
Mm-hmm.
just because it's how
Or
you
buy
know what I'm
into
saying.
racism. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying, or buy into it, or in terms of how I socialize myself, or like the things and the decisions that I make. Like for example, I tell you in a heartbeat, like I am respectable. That I have a respectable life. I'm not a respectable person. Let's be clear.
So
And I'm
you a
echoing.
respectable Negro? Go ahead, let the
No,
people
but
know
when
if
it
you a
comes to
respectable
certain
Negro.
things, I'll be specific. When it comes to uh but the ass over, make that bleed. What's the name? Sexy Red.
Sexy
When it
red,
comes
yeah.
to Suki, when it comes to some of them, when it comes to like Zeus TV, like I'm respectable. Like I got a line where I just don't feel like we need to be doing that out there like that and moving like that. And I understand that cuts against a lot of my relationship to feminism, right? To Black feminism, to my indebtedness to Black women from a bunch of different backgrounds and contexts that have done amazing things. That their boldness has set the stage for me to pop up and do what I want a lot of ways. Like I get that, but like racism be having me looking like some of these niggas, man. Like some of these niggas. And it's just it really is how it ends up working. You know what I'm saying? Like shout out to Invest in the comments, and I hope I'm saying your name right, but no, Travis Kelsey didn't invent no fade. You know what I'm saying? Listen, he was
Right.
honest.
And he actually came out and said, yeah, y'all getting me in trouble. Like that ain't got nothing to do with me. I just had a fade that I get.
But we're not finna talk about this white man when we're talking about
Right.
anti-racism. Uh, but that's my relationship to it. Is I understand that in a lot of ways it kind of shapes and influences, You know how I think about other black people sometimes. Vance in the building. What's
Oh
good,
yeah,
brother?
yeah. Vance done pulled up.
What's
Shout
up,
out to Vance. Y'all
baby?
make sure y'all hit that like button while y'all in here.
Shout out. Vance said it's a win either way. Chiefs win. It's the Pops team, RIP to Pops. So shout out to that. But if the 49ers win, then that's Vance's childhood team. So it's a win either way. I like the neutrality, fam. I like the
Yeah.
neutrality. Yeah.
So the reason I asked is because like I kind of I may fall victim to respectability sometimes too. I think that's a question of survival, and it's gonna be something that we gonna talk more about. Oh, that's a theory of beauty. Didn't even know. Easy Vixen. Yeah, that's a theory of your beauty. Shout out to
Got it.
theory of
My
beauty in the
dog.
building.
You just,
But
I mean, I got we get both of y'all. I miss y'all, man. Welcome back.
yeah, yeah. But those even that perspective of like respectability, you feel me? I think that even that come from trauma. You feel
Yeah,
me? So
it does.
I think the
It definitely
biggest
does.
part about being against or being anti-racist is that I don't think people understand the depths to which racism impacts not even just our environment and things that we experience, but like down to our biology. You feel me?
Yeah.
Like who we are. Hold on, real quick. Take that in.
And while we having this conversation, y'all know it's Black History Month. We're gonna have an end of the month Black History show and have some fun things, some fun conversations. So make sure if y'all got ideas, things you want us to shout out, things you want us to have tips, that y'all dropping it either in the comments of the episodes or that y'all are dropping it on the IG because we definitely are looking for some. We're gonna do some creative things, but we always
Right.
looking for concepts and different things that are happening around us to play into it. So just if you got some
I,
stuff you want to be shouted out for Black History Month, put it on our radar. But plug back to you.
So the reason why I bring this up is rapping with Toya. We came across an article that discusses how racism, like how it negatively impacts our brain, how it negatively affects our brain, and the reason why I bring this up in terms of being anti-racist is that like when we underestimate the impact of it, when we think it's about hurt feelings, you know what I'm saying? When we think it's only questions of our identity and what we should be called and culture, you feel me? Like when we think racism is literally just a question of people feeling bad because they mistreated, we miss the
Mm,
entire damn point. You missed the
very true.
entire damn point. So we're right now the conversation that we're gonna have in this first chop is we're gonna talk about two things. We're gonna talk about a recent study that discusses what's it called, resource penalties associated with living in a racism rich environment. And then we'll talk about what's known as epigenetics, which is the study of how trauma gets encoded onto what was encoded onto the genetics of our ancestors. And then all of that trauma also gets passed down to us as well. So y'all make sure y'all hit the like button, say what's up in the chat as y'all coming in. But to get started, the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna look at the study that initially kind of popped off this conversation for us. And it's the study here, Association of Racial Discrimination with Neural Response to Threat in Black Women in the U.S. Exposed to Trauma. So essentially, what they were looking for was the brain's response, the neural response to the things that Black women deal with, right,
Mm-hmm.
and the impact that response has on the brain specifically. Uh, Now, what they discovered, real quick, just so we can have an understanding of the study and get into the information. What they discovered was, let's get down here. Did I miss it? Well, what they discovered was that again, as I mentioned, there is a resource cost to having to deal with racial discrimination. The assumption was that there is a issue with the executive function
Mm-hmm.
of people who deal with people who deal with trauma, specifically people who deal with racial discrimination. But what they found is that there is experiencing racism wasn't associated with deficiencies in attentional control, which is which is a executive function, but it was associated with heightened activation in emotion regulation and threat inhibition regions, which can disproportionately encumber and drain resources over time. So what they're saying is that because Black people are routinely, in this instance, Black women, but we know that Black men deal with this trauma as well. What happens is because we've been socialized in an environment in anti-black environments, and that we've had to learn to police ourselves in particular ways, like the respectability you was talking about. We've had to learn to
Mm-hmm.
police ourselves in different ways. That what happens is that our brains spend so much of its time focusing on maintaining our survival around the environment. So, am I acting in a way that's bringing a threat to me? Am I saying things that could bring a threat to me? Right?
Right.
Is my behavior putting myself out there in a way that could then become dangerous? Right? Our
Absolutely.
brains overly focusing on adjusting how we are and recognizing how we are in public, actually that resource deficit leads to issues of our executive function, which is our memory, flexible decision making, and self control.
Mm-hmm.
So let me repeat that. And we'll drop the link to the study in the chat, or we may put it in the comments. We'll get it to y'all.
I think you can put it in the description section.
Oh, actually, yeah, I can. But I got this is a PDF, so I gotta go to the
Yeah.
place to get it. Um, but essentially, what it's saying is that our brains spend so much time regulating ourselves in a society that is that has like hyper surveillance on Black people specifically, because the way that they want to criminalize us, that it then leads to sometimes bad decision making, sometimes issues with self control, right? Because it's a resource deficit. If our brain is
Yeah.
using energy in one area, it takes away from the energy that could be used in other areas. Right, so this is a study that is literally pointing out the ways that, because we have to be hyper vigilant, we always got to make sure that we moving in the correct way that's gonna keep us alive. That other parts of our brain of executive functions end up suffering because of that. You feel me? Which
I mean, I
again,
do. One of the huh.
yeah. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just thinking one of the things that I think of as you describe this is that, the idea that every action has an equal or opposite reaction, right? So, like, when you have people who have experienced like this policing, this shutting up, this shutting down, this attempt to water down and forcing them to assimilate, you have people who either rise to the occasion and do that and respond to that stimulus and say, okay, well, then I'll be smaller, I'll shrink, I'll be quiet, I won't be as expressive because I fear, like, the threat of violence or whatever. Or I feel like what we see is people who just swing wide right and go all the way. You know what I'm saying? Off of what some might consider to be a deep end. And they say, well, I can't be policed at all. And there's nothing you can tell me. So I'll let it all hang out. I'll be, you know what I'm saying, overly expressive in these things. I'll tell you the deepest, darkest components of my thoughts. I'll really, make sure that there's not a world where I'm being tone policed or being, policed in any way because I don't have that fear. You know what I'm saying? But I think it's like, and this is my respectable nature speaking, like that it is a grandiose gesture, right? That it's an overcorrection a lot of the times because of the position people have been put in. Just to explain what executive function is, shout out to Eve's Diction. I think you pronounce that Eve. I think Diction.
Yeah.
And I don't want to your theory of beauty if that ain't your name no more. But explain what executive function was by saying executive functioning, otherwise known as your air traffic control system, which governs emotion and management of emotion, focus, and decision making. And also, I think there's some components of critical thinking and critical decision making wrapped up in there too. And so they continue by saying, and it's coming from all directions for a lot of us: our jobs, our government, our interpersonal relationships, our family history, and day to day thinking. They're all implicated by racism, just all kind of working together to create various anxieties, various kind of issues or barriers to relating to people, to understanding self. Like it really becomes this complex web, right? Like ESL, like Eve, okay, Eve Dixon, got it. What's up, J University? Yeah, I'm making those connections as you think, and I just think about the whole notion of an equal and opposite reaction.
So with that understanding that we see in the impact on the brain, right? We also got to make sure we having a conversation about epigenetics, and that is exactly how that trauma gets passed down. So we have the contemporary issue that we deal with. We're having to deal with the discrimination, but we also have to take into account the trauma and our predispositions, because our ancestors had to deal with chattel slavery and the trauma
Right.
that was created from that. And so a study that
I mean,
came out of
even before I want to point out, even before chattel slavery,
even
because
before
the
chattel slavery,
actual, you know what I'm saying, like the acquisition of slaves and the colonization that it took, then the intellectual and mental trauma of people who sacrificed their lives before they even made over here to go through chattel slavery, right? The whole transatlantic slave trade, I think, imprinted itself at every stage of the operation, you know what I'm saying, on black people in unique ways, because we see black people who are willing to be, politically sacrificial or to die, you know what I'm saying, before they allow a system to oppress them. Or,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? There's so many different components of that whole process that influence that have been imprinted on us. So I just wanted to shout out those parts of the experience too.
Facts. Now, what helps us understand epigenetics is actually this term that we understand as post-traumatic slave syndrome, similar to post-traumatic what is stress disorder. It
Mm-hmm.
is the impact on the body physically and the brain as well of trauma, and how that trauma actually it gets encoded onto your genetics, right? Like changes like your body. The definition that we get is a condition that exists when a population has experienced multi generational trauma resulting from centuries of slavery and continues to experience oppression and institutionalized racism today. Added to this condition is a belief, real or imagined, that benefits of society in which they live are not accessible to them. Right. So again, understanding that the environment around me is not for me. It is wholly against me. It's wholly problematic. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
types of things that the type of stimuli that we're talking about that black people today have to deal with because of what our ancestors deal with is things that came from it's environmental stimuli such as rape, torture, murder, and etc. Like those types of instances that we saw a lot on the plantation and that we still see in certain degrees today. Now,
Mm-hmm.
one of the scholars that helped come up with that definition, we got a video for them, Dr. Joy Angela DeGraw. Uh, and let me get this up so we can have a conversation. So she can break it down a little bit more for us, a better understanding. All right, let me get it set up for Toya and myself. And let's go. Y'all bear with us just a second here.
While Damo gets that pulled up, make sure y'all stick around for the second part of this conversation. Because I got some questions about hip hop. We still in the 50th anniversary. I think we've been celebrating for about a year. So time for that is gonna come to an end pretty soon. But as we come out of the 50, the hip hop 50, there's a lot of questions about the bite that hip hop has and whether it still got some to it after 50 years of it existing and growing and expanding in a lot of unique ways. So we'll get in that conversation in a minute. But yeah, you got to feel better. You can do it.
Yeah, let's get it.
Chattel slavery, we're not talking about one trauma. We're not talking about a specific event. We're talking about generations of trauma with no intervention. Based on what I know about sugar plantations, tobacco, and the Caribbean, what I know about American chattel slavery and the plantations there, does anyone right now ever recall mental health assistance to slaves? Anybody remember
That's a
sending
great
in
point.
therapists after I sold off your son, daughter, raped folks? At any point? Never. Second question. After slavery was officially over, now you're free. Anybody remember any therapy then? We know it's been rough, it's been deep for you, it's been difficult. We're going to do a little group therapy. Anybody remember that? That would be no. Number three, after slavery officially ended, both in the States, in the Caribbean, the British ended, do you remember whether or not trauma continued? Did the trauma continue for people of African descent? I need to know. Okay, so now let's do the math. Hundreds of years of trauma, no treatment. Freed, more trauma, no treatment. What do you do the math? Do you think there may be residual impacts of that trauma? Of course there is. It didn't end, and it hasn't ended yet. So I think
I think that point right there that she said, the residual impacts, that's what gets ignored. That's why we routinely having conversations about who was actually responsible for slavery. We don't give a fuck. Like it doesn't matter that people today aren't responsible for the slavery, for slavery as it existed back then. People
Right.
today still have to deal with the consequences. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think black people kind of recognize that when we talk about what needs to be fixed. Like when we say like we're trying to do, we want to do right by black folk, we want to end we want to end racism, right? But we also want to pull ourselves up. We don't want to overly focus on racism. It's like what's being pointed out is racism ain't never been dealt with. You can't overly focus on something that is still a problem. That's still not solved. So the first question I want to ask to you, Toya, is given this information, like the genetic impact and the impact that it has on our brain, like how do you think that like those issues that we deal with it affect how we treat each other today? Like how black people treat each other today?
I mean, when I think about the whole like, why are we not like looking to or understanding the influences of slavery and how it exists? I honestly think, and this is something I was going to talk about in my segment, but I think we should start introducing here, which is this idea of like trauma fatigue. You know what I'm saying? And kind of trauma porn. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of Black people feel like, and we've taken on the position of our oppressors in the sense of being like, man, stop blaming everything on slavery. Like that shit is old. Like I'm sick of hearing about it. You hear it when people talk about, movies that come out. Like I'm sick of hearing about slave stories and this and that. And I think it's just really desire to move away from understanding yourself from that position or really kind of admitting to yourself that the shit lingers on. But it's both true. Like you said in one breath, like the trauma is still here. Like the reason why we can't just get over it or the reason, why people say, I didn't do it, it's not my problem. And it is because the trauma is still here is the same way the benefits you experience from it are still here, right? So,
Right.
so of kind of the implications of slavery are just encoded, but it's deep, so you don't think about it. You know what I'm saying? It's like the nose on your face. When your nose itch, you don't say my nose is itching, I'm going to use my hand to scratch my nose to relieve that
Even you
sensation.
mentioning an itching nose made me psychologically, subconsciously want to scratch my nose.
Exactly. But 9 times out of 10, outside of that moment, you just reach up there and kind of stretch it because it's that natural to you. So that's just how regular, how baked in it is for even Black people to experience and understand racism, to decode other Black people in the context of whatever, and to really expect, like, I feel like it's a different texture to it because the texture of white people being like, get over slavery is different than the texture of niggas being like, yeah, so and. But I feel like
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah, when niggas say it, I take way more offense to it. Like white people, it's like you kind of expect that. Like it's like, yeah, that ain't, they didn't have to deal with it for real. So, you know what I'm saying? But for people who do experience it to be like, nigga, get over it. Like, but yeah, go ahead.
or like I'm sick of hearing about that shit, or like when I think even more so, it's easy to see, especially crabs in the barrel mentality. The idea that
Mm-hmm.
first of all, we forgetting about who put us in the barrel. Why are we in the barrel? Crabs don't go in barrels. That's
In the
not their
first
natural
place.
habitat. It's not their natural habitat. But while we in there, we have this mentality that it's everybody trying to get out and fend for themselves, and so we really do end up in a place where it's like, oh, slavery, that's messed up, and you forget that that literally explains somebody's whole situation. Like it's really that simple. You want to be able to blame it on bad decisions. You want to be able to blame it on, what I'm saying, errors in judgment. You want to be able, but it really is as simple as generational. She specifically talked about
Yeah.
it, used the language of generationality to explain and describe how you could literally be sitting looking at somebody who look like they a bump on the log, and they are, but it's both by design and by lack of design, and we don't give credibility and space to that because look at me, look at
Yeah.
mine, you know what I'm saying?
Or the fact that rich billionaires or black billionaires exist, or the fact that IU was able to make it out, that type of shit. That
It's just that
actually,
fatigue. It's just the tiredness. It's the apathy that comes from being like we have beat this horse and nothing's changed. What she said, and all these different events came and no healing came. No, so nothing changes. You get tired of it. It's just who you are. It's what we do. You get over it, make
that
the best out of it, and move on like I did.
yeah, that kind of get me to my point in how I think uh like these genetic issues and these brain issues like impact how we treat each other. I think it's the reason why we don't have that compassion.
Yeah.
Like I think the minds of free thinkers in 2023 and 2024 is just like, yeah, don't show no compassion to black people. Like, just tell them that they all fucked up, that they don't do shit right. That it's like y'all spending y'all money on dumb shit. Y'all sitting up there watching the little Nas X's and the Sexy Reds, and y'all care more about all this stupid shit and XYZ. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Which and that's supposed to be like supposed to help the black community. I think that Charleston White is one of the key examples of this. Like, he's one of them people that run around thinking like, if I just if I speak to them in the most fucked up manner possible about their circumstance, then like that's how I show them I love them.
Mm-hmm.
Which is also an example of trauma, right? So it's like when we asking ourselves like why we don't have why we don't have that compassion, we ain't got the brain power to do it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
it's again because a part of our executive function is flexible thinking, right? Thinking through different scenarios or thinking through different scenarios of a situation.
Right.
When it's literally saying that we spend so much time with self regulation, that our brain spends so much time with self-regulation that our executive function is hampering. That's also the flexible thinking part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we for whatever reason we don't think we can be honest about the circumstances of black people and be compassionate at the same time. For whatever reason, we're under the impression that everybody's always been kissing black people ass.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's always had compassion for black. That shit is a myth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even any little like commercialized compassion that's been displayed, that was for that interest convergence. That was for a purpose. That wasn't to have compassion for black people.
Absolutely.
And so it's like I actually think of those people in a different light now because of I'm thinking like, okay, like you care about black people, and it's like this is the tradition of that tough love. This is the tradition of I gotta beat your ass if I love you. If I'm
Yeah.
not whooping your ass, like I'm not, you know what I'm saying, steering you in the right way. Because it's these things that we've learned from trauma that that's been passed down and we think we're doing it ourselves. So the last thing I'm gonna show, and I want to get your perspective on this, Toya, is on the study on this study is actually about the way that the arts actually help black people deal with post-traumatic slave syndrome, which I was like, this
Mm-hmm.
would be perfect. This would be perfect debate evidence for rap good and debate. Perfect debate evidence.
Absolutely.
But where the study takes it is it's as an example of how that trauma gets passed down. So the traumatic event that takes place, a child is separated from the mother on the plantation, and that child is sexually assaulted or sold off. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The psychological impact of that is that the mother fears that all her future children will have to go through the trauma that that child had to endure. How that changes the mother's behavior. The mother chastises all future children in advance of their separation from her as a form of protection.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect example of this getting passed down. My mama used to tell me and my brothers all the time, when them white folk get you, ain't nothing I can do for you. Don't go out there acting a fool, because when the white man get his hands on you, like I can't save you from that.
The
Right?
talk.
That's that type of chastising, right?
One of many talks.
The generational transfer that takes place is that chastised child grows up to be a mother and develops the same learned behavior of fear that was demonstrated.
Mm-hmm.
That type of fear in those circumstances was encoded onto the child from the mother's trauma and gets encoded onto their child. Then the long term impact of that is the African American child's freedom of expression is potentially stunted and hindered in perpetuity subconsciously due to the passing on of a practice that was bred out of a preventive measure to a traumatic event. So because black children were taken away from their mothers on the plantation, and the impact of that, black children today are not taught to be themselves. Black children
Absolutely.
today are not taught to be expressive. Black children today are not taught to engage in things that make you feel good, that make you happy, display yourself in ways that make you happy. And all of that started from the child being taken from the mother on the plantation. This shit gets slept on.
Mm-hmm.
Even breaking this down gets turned into being called an excuse. You feel me? So
I mean,
I
when you
think
say a lot of these, I think what becomes just makes it even more captivating to me and just kind of fascinating is the internalization of it, because other people are good about making sure that we can express ourselves, that we live very humble, low down, broken existences, that we feel this way and that way about who we are. But you know who else will do it to you quick? Other black folks.
Other black.
Right.
Oh yeah.
That's
It's
where it's even more interesting to me.
yeah. I mean, it's the whole like us as niggas on the debate team. Like telling the other like, well, niggas don't debate. Like that's the first thing that came out of folks' mouth. Like what
Exactly.
y'all like? What you know what I'm saying? Like I remember when I wrote my scholarship essay to go to debate camp. I pointed out that the only thing that my community for real know about debate is Carlton on the Fresh Prince, and that was not a positive thing. You didn't want to be like
Right.
Carlton. You feel
Exactly.
me? So it's
It's
like
just
that, that example of a reflection of how like Will Smith representing the black hood community from Philly responded
mhm.
to his cousin on the debate team, nerd. You know what I'm saying? Something not positive type shit.
Absolutely.
Right. And it get me to my second question. So to move the conversation forward, is knowing this information, right? Knowing how like just our environment impacts how we think, it impacts what literally our brains spend time on. How should this change how black people interact? Like how should this really is it a problem that this information is it more, you know what I'm saying, is it more relevant? Is it more prevalent? Especially when we talk about black circumstances in an environment where because like the way that I want to answer that question, which made me ask it, is we have to develop a different lens in which we assess the black situation, a completely different lens, because currently we just view it under the perspective of personal decisions. Black people just make bad decisions. Black people just don't have self-control. When we literally have like scientific data that's telling us that our self-control does get hampered by our constant desire, or not even desire, but our subconscious need to
Mhm.
over-regulate ourselves. Yeah, we need to completely change what we think the problem is, right? Which a lot of people say is like it's like really our environment, but that's not the main focus of these conversations. It's like, well, you can't take the responsibility from black people. Like, come on, bro. We literally have a resource deficit in our brain. So I think that like this type of information should be more relevant because it helps us have a better understanding of black people decision making.
I mean, I think, when you say that, and as you say that, I think about the idea where we are able to learn about and communicate, have racial literacy, if you will. We use that phrase all the time, got it from Lee, the ability to read, write, and interpret questions of race, right? And be able to kind of navigate those discussions with a level of aptness and with a level of precision that is only going to come when you flex those muscles and kind of grow them. That being said, I think, understanding, and this is the way we navigate our real lives, because this is like not unfathomable. When I started to really hear about epigenetics, I was like, it makes sense. Like
Right.
I'm more stunned that somebody took the time to put it in words that I am, that that's the reality of how that I navigate the world as a result of what my ancestors went through. So I feel like, black people building a relationship with this, it allows for them to get an understanding, not make an excuse. You know what I'm saying? This is an explanation of phenomena. It's not an excuse for anything. And so
Yeah.
I think people might look at these types of conversations and say, oh, this is just a chance for white people to blame it on the man again. It's a chance for black people to, not strive or to actualize or do better or be great. Or it's one of
It's
those
such
kind
an
of,
irresponsible stance.
and I mean, it's black people who have it like that we are so caught up in coming up with new theories that explain the influences of the past that we can't really move forward and actually actualize a present or a future. And I just feel that's so intellectually lazy, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole origins of the epigenetic study, guess where you even put me up on Game of the Roots in it, and the roots
Yeah.
of it is that, understanding how victims and survivors and descendants of
The
people
holo.
from the Holocaust have
Yep.
navigated this. And so when white
Yep.
people talk about their pain and their trauma, and we've seen everything from reparations to everything else be allocated to individuals who dealt with
To
that traumatic.
everybody but niggas.
You know what I'm saying? So we can fathom why white people do the things that they do, why Jewish folks do the things that they do and believe the things that they do, why, they can, have experiences that are formed and shaped by how terrible and grave that experience was. And I don't want to say it flippantly, but I say it in ways that are not to demonstrate that it's not ever held paramount and tantamount to how it is we talk about slavery. It's always a little bit more, a little bit more teeth in it. And when it comes to slavery, the age-old conversation is about how they tell us to sit up and shut up, sit down, shut up, and move on. When we are talking about hundreds of years, and the Holocaust was just not nearly as long. So if the Holocaust was as long as it was, how long was it? Uh,
I mean, it lasted one war.
Multiple decades.
Yeah, I mean,
You're
it
right.
was.
You said it
It,
lasted a war.
yeah, so it's
Right,
like
the implications of it and the makings of it, right? You had a lot of you had a lot of things that set up a society to fall prey to something like that. Even still, right? That timeline pales in comparison to how many black people, how long you have black people who didn't know they was out of slavery when slavery, like you just there's so many
yeah,
examples that we use to talk about the depth and the breadth by which black people have been relegated to the periphery, marginalized,
still,
erased, oppressed,
still,
gratuitously, still,
still,
all
yeah,
because of the length and the presence of slavery. You know what I'm saying? And so
man.
comments, I mean, I'm looking at these comments, they say, let's work for the oppressor to do if the oppressed oppress themselves, right? And so this is exactly why we can't do their dirty work. We can't allow the erasure on our watch. We can't not talk about it because they already don't want to talk about it. We can't not put that at the forefront of how we navigate what we're holding white people accountable for. Because I feel like even in a lot of these conversations, about social, like be scared to be like, hold the line on slavery. You letting white people punch you out of that ain't our fault. And that's some bullshit. I think they need to hold up
I
a
mean,
little bit.
because it's black people that's buying into it. It's like shit. We in 2024. It's acceptable. I mean, even before that, when like Kanye just moved the Overton window in a way that was crazy. Like where all of a
Mhm.
sudden it's like, yeah, I agree with him. Yeah, I think that. And to be honest, and I say this, and then we can go ahead and get to the next chop, get to the hip hop conversation. Um, based on the data that we presented, all of you niggas running around talking about it's all about black people just need to make better decisions. Black people just bad at doing this. Black people just bad at doing that. Everything y'all saying is anti-intellectual than a motherfucker.
Yeah.
When it's literally scientific data that's telling us that there is a resource deficit in the brains of people who experience discrimination. Because right, I'm not, because as much as we talk about racial discrimination, there are many groups who are being discriminated against. But when it's literally a resource deficit in the brain of people who deal with racial discrimination, that means that the biggest problem that we're dealing with is our environment.
That part.
We don't trust the society in which we live. So we spend more time regulating ourselves and making ourselves available to this society that hates us than we do anything else.
Yeah.
And that is having an impact on our brains. For real. So with that being said, you know what I'm saying? Research over me search, man. Y'all get y'all shit up. Develop a better understanding. If y'all want these studies, just holler at me in the chat. We'll get them to y'all ASAP. We got them right. I got the PDF right here for you. You feel me, and all of that. So we're gonna bring it close to the racism in our brains conversation. I'm gonna pass it over to Toya. Let's talk this hip hop shit.
Real quick, we're gonna talk about hip hop, like because as I mentioned earlier, we've been a part of the Hip Hop 50 celebration for a large part of the year at this point, and I think we are moving into year 51. A lot of these conversations are coming to a close, which led Rolling Stone to release an article that was entitled "50 Years Later, Is Hip Hop Still Radical?" I want to read the first part of this article to kind of frame the conversation I want to have, just because I felt like it was really poignantly written and does a good job at steering the conversation we want to have. It's written by Tim Hotep Aku and Andre G. And so these are the authors who really went into putting this body of work together.
Oh, them is some
And rolling
niggas.
Exactly, right. And that's why I wanted to say their names, because I feel like these are black people posing these questions just like we are, and really have
Yeah.
inspired the conversation we're having. And they take an interesting take about it. And by the way, this article was just written on January 23rd of 2024. So very recently. Um, the comments say God is watching. Thank you, regular Joe. We appreciate it. Hallelujah. Thank you, Lord. Now let's talk about hip hop. In an afternoon in July 2023 in New York City, I'm sorry, it's an afternoon in July 2023, and New York City Mayor Eric Adams is in his element, standing at a podium at a foot of a marble staircase in New York City Hall. The mayor is flanked by staff and supporters and hip hop stars, including Eric B. of Eric B. and Rakim fame, rapper and reality star Peter Gunn, and the Black Master Artist KRS. And I'm echoing real bad, Damo. The occasion is the announcement of a series of concerts to celebrate hip hop's 50th anniversary across New York five boroughs, aiming to look the part of hip hop. Mayor Adams, who usually wears formal business attire, has forgone his suit and is rocking a half-zip, jacket check jacket, a red baseball cap with the letters PR that represent the roots of Puerto Rican population in hip hop. And he tells KRS-One to jump on the mic and tell them how great I am as a man. Then a moment both surreal and absurd. KRS-One, one rapper who samples speeches by black radical activists, including Kwame Ture, right, who used to be a Black Panther, penned songs critical of police violence like Sound of the Police, Black Cop, and 30 Cops and More, launched into a rhyme praising a former police captain and staunch defender of the New York Police Department. I'll skip the lyrics that he put, but here's what the article was interesting to me. This wasn't even the only sample of something like this happening during last year's 50th anniversary festivities. Lil Wayne performed Mrs. Officer at Vice President Kamala Harris's September event celebrating hip hop. Let's see. Fat Joe gifted a pair of Terror Squad Air Force Ones for former President Bill Clinton, who notably signed the 1994 Violent Crime Control Law Enforcement Act, which caused mass incarceration. America's Most Wanted era would have been arch enemies with conservative commentator Tucker Carlson in the early 90s. But in July, he went on Carlson's show where he called the COVID-19 vaccine versatile. The most sanitized celebrations of the 50th anniversary appear to suggest that the culture has lost its radical edge. You think the hip hop world will have something to say about its anti-establishment roots on its birthday, but instead we saw the opposite. I'll stop there. What this whole kind of reflection on KRS-One, what the conversation about Fat Joe, what who else? Lil Wayne. All kind of alludes to is that I don't think there is a radical compass in hip hop right now. And can you hear me echoing? Can y'all hear me echoing? Because it's really bad on me.
Yeah, it may be something with your computer because my mic was on mute the whole time you was hearing the echo.
I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
and it's gone now. So whatever you just did, it was the problem. But what I'll say is hip hop got some explaining to do. I think a lot of where we've gone and the direction that we've gone in has been very unique. Of course, we know that hip hop defines whole pop culture generation. There is no other genre of music right now without hip hop, and not staying alive. You know what I'm saying? Like it's even suspected that, for example, Beyonce, who is an appendage of hip hop, she's like a hip hop, she's a mixed genre artist. She about to jump over in the country. So there's not too much that the wheelhouse of hip hop music, R&B music is not touching right now. My question to you and to everybody else is, in its current form, because what these authors are saying could be debatable. In its current form, do you feel like hip hop is radical? Is there anything about hip hop that could be understood or deemed or interpreted as radical? Why or why not?
I do. I think hip hop. So my perspective is shaped a lot by like the Judy article, Ronald Judy, the author, on the question of nigga authenticity, because what he discusses specifically is the concept of hyper commodification and how what black people put out is literally is made for the world to consume due to the relationship that we've developed with the society from chattel slavery. So like nothing black people produces is their own. It's for the consumption of the world. That's what makes whiteness so parasitic. So I think we overhyped the commercialization aspect of it because we're ignoring the fact that the commercialization of like black art is inevitable. Once it gets produced out there and once the capitalist structures see that they can benefit from it, they're going to push it. Another example of interest convergence theory. So this idea that the existence of commodification is what takes away the radical element of hip hop, that's false. What I would say takes away the radical element of hip hop today is the conversation, the message, what they talk about, what matters to them. You know what I mean? I think what's crazy is what's dude name? It was a rapper from New Orleans. I ain't never really heard his music, but he blew up based off of calling out rappers. D1, D1 is his name. D1.
Mm.
He blew up by calling out rappers for like, you know, people like Meek Mill that's going around talking about prison reform, but then still make music that kind of depicts black men killing each other. You know what I mean? We have the type of cognitive dissonance that allows us to enjoy the music, even though we in real life condemn the behavior. But I think the lack of caring about that, like about what gets promoted, because when they were called out for their music, all they did is just get defensive. You feel me? Like they're not responding to the fact that they're making music that could be considered detrimental for the youth. They just turn around and, well, I give turkeys. Nigga, Nino Brown gave out turkeys. He also sold crack. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that type of, like those type of excuses and that type of approach to having those conversations, I think is what take away the radical element. I mean, I think shit like gangster rap, I think shit like trap music, even drill music, I think what's radical about it is the anti-respectability, fuck society, I'm a be me type attitude. I think that attitude has revolutionary potential. But when it in a lot of ways with rap now, it's very self-serving. So it's not as much of a conversation about, yeah, this is us, this is our environment, we here, we making money, and it's like, fuck the system. These niggas turn around and be like, shit, the system worked for me. You feel me? Like, it's like, shit, I like, look at these chains, look at the jewelry. I can't come, like Lil Wayne, I can't complain about white people because white people don't do nothing but pay me. You know what I mean? It's that approach. And so I think that the revolutionary element is there, but rap is hella selfish right now. Hella selfish.
I mean, I feel like what you've identified though as a revolutionary element also, and we kind of talked about this earlier in terms of playing into the script and playing into, because it's like your revolutionary element where it's like fuck everything also includes like the overconsumption of drugs and like the
Right.
carelessness of other people in our community and the murder, kill. And so it's like I'm free to do a lot of shit that is a part of the agenda that whiteness and white supremacy has for my life and for the experiences of my people. You know what I'm saying? So like that's where it gets kind of tricky to me, because then it is like this self-fulfilling prophecy or this like weird loop that I think a lot of its potential gets trapped in. You know, when it attempts to do something revolutionary. Donnell says, but that's the whole lore, right? Talking about kind of some of the older artists and like KRS-One and the way that he ended up coming to the mayor of New York, Mayor Adams, says, but that's the whole lore, right? As radical as they were when they were younger, that's how hard they swing to the right, which is like a demonstration of how they're getting up there. You know what I'm saying? So I think that is kind of the playbook, is this cooling, this, I mean, because the reality of it is, and we talked about this before, like what do we want the OGs talking about? You know what I'm saying? What do we want older hip hop artists or people, you know, in the genre to be doing and moving? And I think it makes more sense that you be a part of these political conversations. I feel like though it's a tactic to stay relevant that you go and completely hop on it. Like, just I don't understand why the message can't be consistent, just more mature. I don't understand why you have to go and be completely counterintuitive to everything you said before. That's the tricky part for me. Donnell, well, actually, Vance says hip hop was co-opted by pop culture a while ago. That notorious letter Too Short talked about the purposeful effort of labels and radio to kill off conscious rap from the mainstream as well.
But
Donnell
see,
says,
but the thing about
go
that
ahead.
though, I don't think like as much what labels do. You feel me? It's only a reflection of what people willing to consume. So
Mhm.
even if they give us too much like the dance or the drug and music, whatever, if niggas want conscious rap to be relevant in rap, they would make it relevant in rap, right? Like the amount of smoke, like J. Cole is considered one of the most like underrated best niggas because it's like he's literally the only nigga that has stayed relevant and kept his message consistent since the nigga, you know what I'm saying, since the come up. The only nigga who have done it. You know what I mean? Cause like even if you look at, I'm gonna be honest, even if you look at Cole's the little tiff that he had with No Name, that's consistent J. Cole. It's the flawed conscious nigga. Like his music isn't pointing fingers at other niggas. It's like he makes music that he's reflective of, and he criticizes himself to criticize other niggas. Cause he like niggas, these niggas make the same decisions as me. You feel me? People, it's like we know that conscious music can do what it do because we have out of the big three, Drake, Kendrick, and Cole. Kendrick and Cole make, for the most part, conscious music. Kendrick, you know what I'm saying, more like artistic conscious, but for the most part, he don't make music about being happy about popping pills and all that shit. And he's one of the most respected artists in the game. So the idea that like that it's the labels that made it. Yeah, do the labels push that as much as they should? No. But if black people wanted it and they wouldn't always like, man, we don't want to hear that shit, Sharif. Stop preaching to niggas. We out here getting it in. We out here doing this and we doing that. Like it's the desire to put like that we have to push that shit away. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to like letting it thrive.
I guess I want to speak to like the desire to push that shit away as opposed to letting it thrive. And I'm getting some comments in the chat that I'm gonna try to make sure I come back to too, because they kind of fit where they fit in this. But I want to then go back in the context of the music and the art that we create and ask, then do we have trauma fatigue? And is that good or bad? You know what I'm saying? Like, do we have music? Because the same way niggas is like, I don't want to watch no more movies about slaves. I don't want to watch no more movies about white people being fucked up to us. Is that, do you feel like in music, like, because we know music is escapism. So
Yeah.
do you feel like the reason we don't have as many Commons and Talib Kweli's, the Yasin Bays, Dead Presidents, David Banner, Big Crit, you know what I'm saying? Like, we get flashes of Conscious Code, we get flashes of, you know, K Dot, and I agree with all of that, but all of that stuff is kind of, it's a lot of their music is neutral. Like, they're not talking about in every song and every track, like their body of work being committed to exposing the ways the white supremacy is tempting and tantalizing black people in some of
Yeah.
the ways that are demising our community. It's blended in, it's papered in, it's a bar or two. Whereas I feel like some of the older examples we had, you know what I'm saying, that we was talking about, is whole albums, whole songs committed to being like, fuck y'all. You know what I'm saying? So I guess my question is, like, do we have trauma fatigue? And is that good or bad? You know what I'm saying? Do we deserve that break? Is music the escapism that we should be having to do that shit? And then maybe
Nah.
movies and art is more suited to deal with that. What do we do with our trauma? And do
So
you feel like this is all an example of us being tired?
we don't have trauma fatigue. We are desensitized. Like the rise of the new Kanye West allows us to see that we've literally become fully desensitized to what's known as the black experience and what's responsible for it. And because we've become so desensitized that we've reached a point where we're more so tired of being preached to by older niggas, by conscious niggas, by religious niggas. We don't want to be preached to. You feel me? Like, it's not because the preaching comes from, like, it's just don't live your life like that. You don't need to live your life like that. Like all that gang banging and all that. That's not good, all of that. And so, but what's happened is there's been like literally from NWA to whatever, the trap era to now the drill era to the neo drill era, all of that. It's the same conversation. You feel me? Just repackaged and given to niggas with different beats and different sounds and different flows. That's it. And it's because so much of that life has become equated with the black experience. I mean, because it as much as it is, it doesn't wholly define us, and that's the problem. But because it's now become lucrative to express that lifestyle, to hold up that lifestyle, then it's like we young niggas out here making money.
You know what? I think it's the one of the biggest ruses. Now that you talk about it, is like, I feel like black people, and the reason why we get what we get in terms of the music and the content that we have in terms of like what ends up being mainstream and popular is, and check me out, follow my train of thought. Black people, in particular black people, because we know all hip hop is not the same, and niggas is talking about 1,000 different things on these songs. But the people who have the message that is the most lucrative, that make record companies the most money, get all the bump. And they sell these songs to other niggas. But really, we know that white people are the biggest consumers of hip hop. Here's
Right.
what a rule: because black people lead trends, spur trends, allow for you to go from being minuscule and take off. We tap in. So when we see good record sales, when we see shit moving, we assuming it's other niggas doing it. But it's not. White people who have gravitated towards something, behind something, made it popular, gotten it broke
Yeah.
on the spot. Because if black people was just the ones pushing it, we see how hard it is when niggas just get behind nigga shit and want it can't. You cannot grow unless white people are behind your shit. And I feel like when black people catch the wave of what white people be on, it like does this dip back to us, and we're like, oh, this is what we should be listening to. Which means then the white people who are, getting their nigrophilia
Mm-hmm.
tantalized, who are getting their daily dose of murder, murder, shoot, shoot, kill, kill, they driving up the sales, and we like, oh, that's hot. Other niggas must be with that. We
Right.
must be on the same page. And I
Like when they be
really
talking
feel
about
like,
stream sales and shit, niggas do not have Spotify accounts like that. We got the free
you
shit.
know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like it's just like this weird, like reverb, like this feedback loop where they have chosen and selected what shit they want to pump. They pump it to the white people. The white people send back to us in a real way what's hot, what's supposed to be hot, what's supposed to be catchy and trendy or whatever, what has a lot of momentum behind it. We get it back secondhand. And we are under this illusion that this is the pinnacle. This is the objective. This was good. This was like I'm kind of trying to think through how
Yeah, niggas
knowing
just hype.
knowing that black people are not a monolith, knowing so many diverse people with so many different black people with different relationships to life and reality, working with existing with different demographics, right? I'm a church girl at heart, which means I know a whole bunch of old black people, very traditional black people, very, southern conservative black people, but I'm also an educator, so I'm around a bunch of kids and young people forming generation in pop culture. I'm also 34, I'm millennial, so I'm somewhere in the middle. It's just like who is really buying into this bullshit and glorifying it and edifying it to the point where we're getting away from real messages between real people.
I mean,
That's,
nah,
that's
it's grown people that's still doing that shit too. A grown man just had a what was it? NBA young boy birthday party. A grown man had an NBA young boy themed birthday party. No bullshit. This is why I call niggas hypes. Like I don't like shit simply because it's popular. That don't mean nothing. But I also recognize that the one thing hip hop does is it taps into all types of affect. Nigga affect, everybody else affect. Cause like shit, really people want to feel that nigga affect. You know what I mean? And what you and I, like we're wordsmiths. We like language. We pay attention to words, right? It's a lot of niggas that listen to rap and be like, I don't give a fuck what they saying. Do the beat go hard?
right.
Is he riding the beat hard enough for me to like vibe to that melody? That's more so. That's more so what I'm on. I'm gonna learn the words, and the words are probably gonna be on some bullshit anyway. But like I listened to Gunna because I was like, I want to see what Gunna rap about. Like now after he kind of was on some I ain't a gang member type shit. But then I
Exactly.
listened to it and I was like, oh, this nigga really don't be rapping about shit. Like he just be rapping about being fly, being around
Mhm.
women, making money, wearing nice clothes, driving nice cars. Really, that's just it. Like and I mean, because that's music that ain't even like promoting like it kind of promote drug dealing like on some slick shit hustling type music, but it really don't be saying and people okay with that. And if we connect it to the old, like if we connect to the past conversation we just had, if we're being honest, that's because sometimes niggas just want to enjoy the music,
Yeah.
regardless of what type of shit it's on. You feel me? Like when we're at a party and we're engaging in the party affect and we vibing. I don't want J. Cole brackets. A nigga rapping about paying his taxes. You know what I'm saying? And how taxes don't help the hood. I don't want to hear that shit. You feel me? I want to hear
I
ATM.
feel like
Count it up, count it up, count it up, count it. Yeah, I'm trying to hear that type of shit. You feel me? So it's just the like as much as like we're critical of what people want to hear. A lot sometimes like that's catharsis. It's just like shit. Like this listening to this is a vibe for me.
I mean, but I
Fuck the
think there's an
message.
oversaturation, and this is where I start to really get concerned about. And I don't want to like go biblical, but like the ear gate and the eye gate, like what you let in and what you let in, and how it plays out and really shapes them and influences. And here's the thing, and this is something I told about you when we were talking about spirituality. You identified the fact that this is just a language, right? We grew up in a certain background, so Christianity ends up being like the language we articulate things through. But there are many different spiritual and even psychological studies that talk about the things that you take in, the message you receive, and how you internalize them, and then what it materializes as. And
Mm-hmm.
so, my nerves get bad because I feel like there's just an imbalance. There's an imbalance in the music that exists and the ways that we then use that not only as a fun mechanism, but as a mechanism of representation of expression. Like,
Right.
I'm sorry, we can't pick out of this debate language. We can't move away from or just ignore representational politics. We can't ignore the way that hip hop music ends up shaping and influencing perception of a whole culture, which is rough. I want to go to the comments because Lance is like Lance said, I'm sorry, Lance, Vance says that like if you strictly listen to somebody like Immortal Technique, Brand Nubian, Army of Pharaoh, Pharaoh Monch, Murs, McCrae, B1, Joyner Lucas, etc., you're considered a weirdo. Now, I went to that comment specifically because if you're looking for some new artists that you haven't listened to a lot, a list was just dropped. Right, Immortal Technique, oh, definitely old school, brand new, and I'm not hip to. Army of Pharaohs, I'm not hip to. Pharaoh Munch, I'm familiar with. Murs, I'm familiar with. Lecrae, B1, Joyner Lucas, I'm familiar with. But those are some more conscious artists that they're not already on your radar to get into. East Vixen says, considering the first chop topic we talked about, it's basically just a numbing ourselves through art as a form of escapism. It's just escapism
Yep.
to the highest level. No thoughts, just bops to cope. And I think that's so true, right? Because our DNA has, kind of been forced into suppression. You know what I'm saying? Because we've been told that we were stupid and put in positions where we couldn't read and couldn't learn and discouraged from building relationships and having tools to recognize how to relate to people and shit like that. Like, turn the beat on and let me just leave all that shit behind. You know what I'm saying? Especially if I'm gonna go to the schoolhouse where they set me behind and you want me to critically think. In these
Right.
relationships, I got a type of emotional intelligence. Like, I get why the music might be. See y'all in a minute. Give me 4 minutes apiece. Give me 25, 30 minutes apiece. Because it's wild, yo. And I do want you to play this Umar clip because when I think about the revolutionary capacity that exists and that's raw, I do feel like the answer is the entire nation. But the thing is, when you are representing the whole culture, you can't. When you got the, and that, I think that's been the conflict. A lot of hip hop artists been like, I don't want the responsibility you put on me. I didn't ask for that. I got skills, I got finesse, I got presence, and I just want to get in here and get a bag and move out the way. All of that shit, when you try to make me responsible for what the culture thinks about itself, or how we understand ourselves, or who
Mm-hmm.
like the next one. You know what I'm saying? It's an opportunity for the next one. So people are saying, don't look at me like that. But I think Umar talked about kind of some of why that is damaging and does us a disservice.
Yeah, so this is Umar like literally saying hip hop ain't did shit for black people, and I want to get y'all perspective on this. I want to get your perspective on the other side. Toya, let's get it in.
Has hip hop benefited the black community overall? Has this been a plus or has this been a minus? Now let's go to the institutions. Hip hop is the most influential musical form in the world right now. 50 years. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry, of course, dominated by European Jews. But yet and still, many of these artists are very wealthy. Not a single institution has come from hip hop in 50 years. Am I supposed to ignore that? Am I supposed to act like these young brothers out here who pushing death and destruction, sexual exploitation and miscegenation of black women, these young brothers who out here pushing drug selling, going to jail, and everything possibly illegal to children, I'm supposed to believe that this was a blessing to the black community when you brainwashing our kids, and on top of the brainwash, on top of the toxic content, you don't even come back to the community and do anything good for it except give out some damn turkeys and sneakers. Are you kidding me? With the type of money that hip hop has generated around the world, this should be at least 25 Black Wall Streets in America right now.
So, so here's the thing, right? I wholly disagree with Umar. I wholly disagree with Umar. I feel
Interesting.
like, well, because I feel like he's ignoring hip hop. He's ignoring hip hop as a actual culture in and of itself, as a reflection of black culture, as a reformation of aspects of African identity that was taken from us, but it's inherently who we are. Right? Rap is like rap, R&B, hip hop. That's black culture. Period. You know what I mean? Like from in terms of things that we've created as the descendants of slaves, jazz, country music, R&B. You know what I mean? Like those are things that we provided for the world, like for the world, that the world mimicked. For him to make it about institutions, like he's very well aware of the stranglehold that white people have over institutions in the United States, period. So to make it simply about having those, I think is short-sighted. But I also think that it operates in the same level of capitalism and colonization that they operate out of by focus mainly on what it produces, what hip hop produces. in terms of like
I
these
don't know,
tangible
bro.
things.
I feel like you're letting Dr. Umar. I don't know. Like I feel like your disagreement with him. I think it's shallow in a sense of listen, Pete, because we talked about a couple episodes ago the ways that real artists and people who have leverage in the hip hop community really do change. They take up space and they want to be in the limelight, and they end up sticking around too long in conversations they don't even really have to have when they can take up space, use resources, and turn the baton over to somebody who could be moving and shaking and have the foresight and the vision to really do something meaningful to navigate these institutions. I don't want Meek Mill trying to navigate my institutions. I don't want Rick Ross trying to navigate institutions. I don't want these people at the forefront, but I feel like there are missed opportunities for people who study this, who do this, for the leaders of the beautiful struggles who are sitting in Annapolis right now trying to figure out decriminalization laws and so that Black people can have better access to licenses and stuff like that to open up dispensaries in Maryland. Like, I think it's just lazy to say it's a whole culture that we built. We don't have to build any institutions, but you're forgetting it. Let me finish that. Or you're forgetting the the barriers to institution building and this, that, and the other. Multi-million dollars. There's decisions being made, man, that I got it out the mud, so other niggas got to get it out the mud. It's people, it's Rick Ross being interviewed. You know what I'm saying, bro, like, you know what I'm saying? I did everything. I went through this, I went through that. I'm too, you know what I'm saying? Like, give me some, like, help me, like, give me some guidance on, and he's like, never stop being hungry, never stop sacrificing. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? You know what I'm saying? But you have the ability to invest into, and this is also in the world where we don't know all these people's business. There's probably all types of shit happening behind the backdrop. So I don't want to assume or group and scoop everybody heavily.
But Umar ain't talking about behind the scenes stuff. Umar talking about building like very visible institutions.
And when you say that, like, niggas should not be responsible for building institutions because we're well aware of the barriers that exist, like, I just feel like that's a cop out.
No. That's not.
I mean,
that's not. That's. I think there's
found a way to own wing stops. LeBron found a way to own Blaze pizzas and stuff like that.
I mean, but again, though, this is the capitalist critique, though. This is the capitalist critique. Is that
what is it?
The value of hip hop, the value in hip hop itself doesn't lie on its ability to replicate institutions in this society. Just like country music, because white people ain't out there asking what is country music doing for, like, what is country music doing and what is country music building and what is country music creating.
Because white people don't have a necessity to create and participate in radical and revolutionary politics to actualize the society they're in. But our conversation is rooted in radicality. So when we talk about the responsibilities that white people have versus black people have, we're talking about different social positions and social orientations that white people have.
But being radical ain't opening a fucking wing stop. That shit ain't radical.
That's my point. Is that it is easier for them. When you said they can't build institutions, the hardest barriers. Obviously not. If you can go in and participate in a corporate system and structure and get your bag that way and invest in chicken shops and fucking pizza shops and shit like LeBron did with Blaze. My argument is if you can navigate institutional barriers and shit like that.
But hold on. But it's not it's that, like, the point that I'm making is, one, that's a criticism of Rick Ross. That's a criticism of Drake. That's a criticism of individual artists. Hip hop itself is a reflection of, like, not even a reflection. Hip hop itself is a culture. Because we've already said hip hop shouldn't be responsible for building these institutions. It should be our black scholars. It should be our black scientists, our black engineers. It should be the people.
With what money? We talking about where the resources flow. If we're really talking about thwarting capitalism and subverting systems and utilizing the technicians of the systems to implode the system from the inside out, then you would take people who've been able to move to the bourgeoisie and you would connect their resources to people who have the mental and intellectual know-how in the proletariat to rupture from the middle. Like,
but the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, that's what the bourgeoisie and the proletariat ain't connected. And because what we're talking about is, again, Drake, like talking about some of the biggest artists, because all rappers ain't making bread like that. So it ain't even possible for it to be solely responsible for to build these institutions, because it's only, just like the rest of the world, 1% of rappers that's making the type of money like Rick Ross, that's making the type of money like a Drake or somebody else. So literally, again, we're putting the colonizers' capitalist expectations onto a raw, natural culture that came out of oppression. Like the idea that, again, the idea that it's up to hip hop to create those institutions. No, it's the people that get the money. You can criticize the rappers without criticizing the culture. The culture's not responsible for that. He said hip hop ain't done nothing for black people. That's a whole ass lie. Because on an interpersonal level, again, the catharsis that hip hop has provided for a people as a whole is beneficial. Just because it can't cut a check, don't mean it doesn't have value. That's the argument I'm making, is that the expectation to replicate white supremacist institutions using a black culture is misguided. That's not his job. That's not his role. Again, the only reason, hold on, and I'll say this, and the only reason again that we're even putting that expectation on hip hop is the same thing that we criticized when we was talking about criticizing celebrities leading the movement.
What you saying is true. Then why do we mourn the loss of Black Wall Street? Why do we mourn the loss of what
does Black Wall Street got to do with hip hop?
What are you, bruh? We're talking about black people with money and their ability to replicate the institutions that we don't have equal and equitable access to in the white context of civil society. Are you serious? Yes, money matters. Money flows through the black population, through entertainers, people who get up, sing, dance, and throw balls around. That is just
that money don't flow through us. They take money from us from that. But we know the niggas that make that much money, that money does not get recirculated into the hood. But again, we're talking about how individuals spend their money. We're not talking about how the existence of a culture and the role of that culture for the people.
Bruh, the culture is dictating, determining, and influencing what individuals do and how they move toward a collective. Right? The moral compass, the collective social compass, the political compass that we have in the United States, for better or for worse, has dwindled down to the desires, the priorities, and the agendas of entertainers. So I don't understand why it would not necessitate that hip hop culture in particular, since it is the guiding light of how we are represented on a political and social stage globally, would not have specific investments in building institutions that counter, that challenge, and that edify that same community, or at least find a balance in that. There's a very individualist culture. Capitalism has shaped and influenced the way that black people feel like they have to relate to other black people, especially when they make it to a certain extent. So we can't sit on this show and bash Jay-Z and bash Rihanna for being black billionaires and be critical of how they got there and recognize that there is no ethicality in them achieving their billionaire status. And you also, in the same breath, say they have no responsibility or accountability of investing some of those billions.
But that's not my position. My position is that there's a distinction between hip hop as a culture and the artists who get rich off of it, off the commodification of it. That's it. I'm saying to say that it hasn't done anything for black people.
I don't know what that does for us to answer the question about the radical potential of hip hop in its 50th year, how it exists, and where it can take us as a people in terms of all of the capital and resources that it has created and built up within itself. And how it seems to only flow one way, in and not out, to materially change the lives of people. I believe this so much so, I want to read the last section of this article. It says, while hip hop's political consciousness has seemingly waned, black and brown people's conditions haven't changed much at all. Dr. Ball, who was referenced earlier in this article, feels like the hip hop 50s festivities should have done a better job of demonstrating that. If we can all come together and break dance and come together around breakdance and the mixtape, great. But at some point, we got to have questions about why are all these people still poor, he says. Why are they still being killed by the police? Why are they still in jail? When do we get to that? When does the love of people and all this unity get to solving the actual conditions? If you love me out of poverty. Don't love my art and just leave me things like goddamn. I don't understand why there's such a dissonance between the idea that if you can reach, if you can benefit, if you can get sales, if you can get somebody Ursher and this person, that person, ticket sales is $500 a pop. So you can get that. So why there's not intentional measures?
So who you blaming it on?
Running your shit up.
So who you blaming it on? Are you blaming it on Jay-Z or are you blaming it on hip hop?
Hip hop. Because it's created.
That makes no sense.
Why? I can love hip hop and be critical of it. Why not?
No. I mean, you can. No, I'm not saying you can't. Like, right? Because if you love it, you will be critical of it. But this criticism, though, is misguided because all it does is focused on replicating things that we see in this. Because one thing I wanted to point out, even when you brought up Black Wall Street is an example of how replicating white institutions isn't the solution. Okay, yeah, we get banks, we get rich, we have all of this, and then what do they come and do? Whiteness still comes in and burns it down. What Judy was saying about the beauty of nigga affect is something that we control regardless. Like the fact that it's certain songs niggas listen to like literally to save their life. It's certain music, it's certain rap songs, it's certain R&B songs. Whether it's the art that come from fucking graffiti. You feel me? Mm-hmm. Hip hop has always been a counterculture, which means that you're not going to see it look like what the culture currently demands, is because it has routinely stood against it. The value of graffiti isn't that we put it in a frame and we put it up on a wall so it can be viewed by the masses. We put it somewhere it ain't supposed to be. Like the story in LA, and I know you've seen them talking about it recently. It's a high rise in LA that has been bombarded with graffiti. It's the fact that the graffiti ain't supposed to be there is what make it valuable. Not that it's art that can be turned into whatever else. So they found a way to commercialize the emceeing aspect of hip hop. Mm-hmm. That is not the entirety of hip hop. Especially if we're saying that we need to move away from our actors or our entertainers from being the people we hold responsible for this in the first place. Again, should rich black people contribute to the hood? Should they contribute to the circumstances of black people with the money that they got? They should. But their own personal failure and their own personal greed is not a reflection of the culture in and of itself.
Yes, it is.
See.
Yes, it is.
You were childish.
I'm just sorry. Like you were doing
you were
it.
childish.
You did a lot in the high rise
childish.
in LA. I vehemently disagree with you because I feel hip hop as it has existed and as it has had its trajectory that is unfortunately taken a lot of twists and turns through capitalism, it has become a bastardized version of itself. It has moved specifically and starkly to the left and to the right of what it was intentioned to be, which was supposed to be a method and a metric of community, expression, political resistance, if not more things. But the ability to collectivize around similar poor lived realities and experiences, and then to take those experiences and use them to edify each other, to find relationality, to build community, to alleviate stress from racial trauma. All of that shit has always been at the foundation of it. And none of the people at the top are invested in that original foundational approach at the bottom. That's always going to be bad business. And there's lost recipes, there's lost sauce.
But you just blamed who you need to blame. I mean, because I'm willing to say that Drake and all the rich billionaire hip hop artists, they don't make up hip hop in its entirety.
Of course
they don't make up hip hop in its entirety, right?
Not.
So that means that. And I'm gonna say this, and then you got it. I also think that the closer they got the money, the less they were the more distant they were to hip hop. For example, I think the failure of Kanye West is him getting all this money. Now I can be in high fashion. I can go to Paris and be around all these designers and be around Vogue and do it. That ain't hip hop, but that's what he embracing. That Eurocentric aspect of art and fashion and what looks good. Kanye put that on. He said, "Fuck hip hop." As soon as the niggas started making stances against black people and against the black circumstances that we go through, that nigga said, "This ain't got shit to do with hip hop." Jay-Z, who he's around, he's not around majority hip hop artists. He don't hang out with Jay-Z. Doesn't hang out with rappers. He hangs out with other billionaires, other CEOs. They're not in that space. That's the difference. If they actually was in black spaces and around black people, the places that they exist in, black people ain't even allowed. Jay-Z admitted to that. Jay-Z admitted that.
And what I'm saying is these are decisions being made. Like you almost say it as if they got blown into Paris Fashion Week or blown into these.
They decided to distance themselves from blackness in hip hop culture.
which is a decision-making mechanism and a framework that hip-hop has used in order to create separations and fissures in the overall mission and goal and the revolutionary capacity of it as an art form. All I'm saying is niggas have followed a textbook. They have followed a blueprint, no pun intended with Jay-Z, and that blueprint is one that has bastardized itself and moved far away from hip-hop's original origins, thus making it non-radical. We end where we started. Cause I'm pretty much over.
Nah. I mean, because that like that. All I'm gonna say is like that, like that leap that you just tried to make. You missed it by an inch.
A small step. It was a.
You missed it by an inch.
I didn't leap. I didn't leap. I don't understand what you don't understand about the idea that capitalism was introduced into the hip hop game. It was not something that somebody went to go find. It's often like it's very much like crack being dropped in the hood. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a.
Do I got to give you another lesson on Judy? Do I got to give you another lesson on Judy?
Are you going to let me finish my analogy? Because it's important in relationship to me finishing my thought. And it's important in relationship to you being wrong. So I'm going to continue to speak regardless of what you think Ronald Judy has to say about what I'm saying.
Because he
much like crack in the hood in the 80s, you see people who had a desire to live together, to be in community, to love on, and then you have the imposition of shit like crack, shit like capitalism coming into a beautiful thing and blowing shit up and making it terrible. Now, we know crack is crack. Capitalism is capitalism. It's going to do what the fuck it wants to do, but we'd be lying if we said some of them. Y'all watch Snowfall. People made decisions about how it is that they wanted to participate in the game. Niggas decide in order to go find a drug, in order to get a bump up, and to get so let's be honest about the decision making that the people with their hands on the levers of power on the lanes were making. Yes, who else makes up a culture?
Yes, that's why there's a distinction between the people and the culture itself. You don't blame the culture for what the people have done.
I don't want me to blame the turntables, y'all. He want me to,
No, I'm telling you, blame the people. You're blaming the turntables. You're blaming the turntables. You blaming the cardboard. You blaming the graffiti. That's what I'm saying.
My position, and I'm gonna share this this Rolling Stone. Look, I'm gonna close it like this because I'm about done. Are we ignoring? I'm sorry. Is hip hop still a radical at its roots? Is the question in the title of this video. My answer is no. I feel like there's still capacity. I still feel like there's generative capacity. I feel like there's revolutionary potential. I feel like there are movers and shakers who don't get the respect, the clout, the attention they deserve. Not even the clout, because I feel like that comes from baggage, but the attention and respect and credibility they deserve. But it is because of the fatigue we have of those conversations and unwillingness of the culture to let those discussions rise to the top, which proves why it's not radical anymore. All I'm saying is hip hop is 50. It has a legacy, it has a past. I'm uncertain about the trajectory of it because it has shifted so far away from what it originally was. Damo's gonna come. He's gonna say whatever he wants to say about it, and I won't say nothing after him because I'm not fussing with this man no more. I feel like they feel both sides, and I feel like if you're a real critical thinker and you got a little bit of your executive function left, and the trauma ain't got too bad, because if it did, I get it. But if you're able to critically think for just a moment about some of this, it makes a lot of sense that we have moved, that we have gone wayward from whom we once were in this art form. And I would love for more people out there who are innovating the craft to get one shine at the top. I'm done. I'm rambling at this point. Plug, talk to your people.
Yeah, man. Because I gotta clean that up, man. I gotta clean that up. Because I mean, it's as simple as this, man. Like, hyper commodification is inevitable. Rap artists who are able to benefit from the culture will get caught up in that hyper commodification. That's literally the nature of the black experience in the United States. Every art form we've produced, there is no popular culture without black music artists. Period. Everybody's favorite white artist has a black artist that they either stole from or that they learned from and then stole it secondhand anyway because they just ran with it, right? Here's the thing. Commodification does not dictate the value of the experience. We know that it was a white man that got paid for Fight the Power. A white man got paid for that. So when KRS won, a white man got paid for that. So even when we look at the radical roots, it was still, the money was still going to people who was not gonna put it back in the hood anyway. So now that there are hip hop artists who are taking this money and not putting it back in the hood, that's not because they're that they are closer to hip hop. It's literally because
talk about blowing over important points very quickly. Talk about blowing over important points real fast. You know that there are black people who are not in this. Like, stop, bro. Stop.
I thought you ain't gonna talk. I thought you ain't gonna talk.
I'm not even giving you the last word. We're gonna go to the comments.
Nah.
Over the whole
Yeah. This could be
we
whatever.
Go all night. Because you will say things that trigger me, and so we're gonna talk to the people. Donnell says, if the culture is being commodified to the tunes of billions, we must hold that culture accountable to the people that actually generated it. Until that happens, it's a culture without a purpose. You better preach, Donnell. RT the culture.
What's the purpose? Come on now. Like currently, what's the purpose of Ghanaian culture?
They should be pouring those resources into the NAACP rather than some independent ventures. Period. That's what I'm saying. Is there an organization like, I want to see big checks cut? Like, all right, y'all. We know it's September. Christmas coming. This coming. That we about to just send all our money to the NAACP for the end of the year balance so we can start. I don't know. I'm not that person. I'm not a political strategist. There are people with degrees who went to HBCUs, who are unemployed right now because niggas with money won't employ them to start giving them plans in order to invest in the current Black liberational infrastructure that already exists, let alone creating something new. East Vixen says that's true as well, because being a hustler is surviving Black struggle and getting money at the top tier. Let me see, at top tier rap topics or... Yeah, I think the whole idea of just like that's where the money is at, so those end up being the moves. They continue on by saying hip hop is at the art of Black expression and does not have to be commodified in order to bring value. No art needs to make money in order to be life changing, and that's where I agree. I'm not denying the transformational capacity of hip hop music. We all have our favorite song. Like I seen the tweet.
You just diminishing in it. That's all. You just diminishing it. That's all.
I'm not. It diminished itself. I'm just what's going on around here.
Okay.
But, like honestly, I think one of the dopest tweets that I have seen recently was people just gushing about their favorite hip hop songs and where it took them. And a tweet was very simply, imagine that an alien came to Earth and had never heard.
You had to get him, yeah.
Well, and you had to give them a song. What would you give them? And like people, I think not only the song, because some of the songs I didn't know, but the stories attached to the reason why people chose the song that they chose let me know that the pulse of hip hop is beautiful and alive and is keeping a culture and a people alive. I'm just saying it could be better. Let me see if there's anyone other comment. Regular Joe said hip hop always praised the white women. Kanye is hip hop. This is true. I'm just kind of reading some info.
Nah, man, no. Hip hop. Hey, I ain't gonna say what I was about to say, but hey, shout out to everybody in the chat though that chimed in. We fuck with y'all.
Honestly, and if we missed any fire comments, that's just the nature of everything. Our brains is moving. We trying to talk. We reading.
Leave a comment. If we missed your comment in the chat, leave a comment on the video. You know what I'm saying once it's posted. Yeah.
But we got a lot of love for y'all. We got a lot of love for hip hop. Let Damo tell it. I'm hating on the craft. I'm hating on the genre. I'm hating on the art.
She said she was respectable, y'all. She said she was on some respectable shit. She started out talking shit about Sexy Red. That's what I'm saying.
I have a level of respectability in me. But a lot of that is because of the trauma that I've experienced. Go back and listen to the first part of the show. Don't blame me. Look, the Chapo Show will be back next Thursday. The Chapo Show will be back next Thursday night. We're going to get into it, talk about a bunch of the new things going on around us. We always got a political topic in our bag, but we try not to talk Trump and politics all the time. So we're going to do better about diversifying some of these conversations. But it's an election year, so you never know. We're going to come back and pull the curtain back on some craziness and get into a bunch of this nonsense going on. So y'all just stay tuned for that. And be plugged in and make sure y'all talking to us, commenting on the clips that we drop and comment on the videos, sharing the videos. If you have not hit that thumbs up at this point, you bugging because you still here, which means you've been sticking around enjoying yourself. So don't be stingy. Go ahead and hit that thumb. Make sure you let us know that your presence is felt up in this thing and let other people know the video popping too. Please.
So with that being said, man, we again thank y'all for joining us. We will see y'all next week. Happy Valentine's Day to all y'all out there. This is the Chop Up, and we gonna see y'all next time. I was about to say, don't throw up that Illuminati diamond. You gonna get this kicked
not
off.
the other one. They be doing all types. We're gonna do this one. We good.
Yeah. All right. Peace, y'all. We out.